All right, we're live on Facebook and we're live on Instagram. So hello, welcome. Hey, Ravi, thanks for joining. Hatham, Amara, thanks for joining. If you're watching later on YouTube, thanks for joining. We have some good questions. I lost some of them that people put in this week. Let me see if I can pull if they will come up from here. But I was a little late on the live stream here, so I'm 8 minutes late. I was on call with a student and we were working on slide technique and I got distracted. That's why I'm still wearing these glasses, new blue light glasses. They seem to be helping. I don't know if any of you guys have tried blue light glasses, but with all the zooming and streaming and everything that I've been doing, they've been definitely helpful to not have so much eye strain. But welcome. It's Friday, April 17th, and we're going to do another Q&A today. I'm going to, before we get too far in, I'm going to make sure to share this onto my Facebook page so people can find it. But feel free to drop in some questions as we're going. The very first question, somebody sent me a messenger question, so I want to address that first because he was the first question in for the week, so I want to make sure Andrew gets his question answered. So Andrew asked, Andrew Wogurski, sorry I can't pronounce your last name, Andrew. He said he was asking me a question, a very practical question about sending CDs and books, and he said, what do you use? Do you use Postal Service or UPS or what? And I've gone through a lot of different iterations of this, using the post office, using UPS, using FedEx. He asked about media mail. So the thing with media mail is that the post office can actually go through your mail when you send it media mail. So you have to make sure that you don't put anything that's not supposed to be in there. So you're not supposed to put in any advertising. It's only supposed to be books or CDs. So you got to make sure that you are careful about what you put in there, because they could just take it and throw it away. And this has happened to me before, that somebody has just kind of thrown away he asked about media mail, so like the package. The thing with media mail is that keeping that in mind, post office hopefully that answers Andrew's question. So feel free to drop in your questions. But to answer Andrew, I use usually first class mail by weight. I have a subscription now with Shopify that you put in the weight and the package size, so the envelope size you're using, and it calculates it, prints it out, and you just slap it on and just drop it off at the post office. That's been what I've moved to for mailing stuff. So if you're trying to mail stuff, I like the automated stuff, either stamps.com I've used or Shopify. So one or the other. So feel free to drop in your questions. I got a nice list here, some really thoughtful questions from this week. And I'm just writing to people to tell them that they can also ask questions. Drop the questions in here. All right, I'm pulling up our questions. Feel free to ask any as we go, and we'll see what we can do. There's none in the queue yet, but feel free to ask. All right, so this is from Trombone Josh. Josh is a trombonist from Montana. I met Josh a number of years ago, so happy to see him here asking a question. And he asked, what made you switch from Edwards to King? So what I'm playing now, Andrew, I see you. I just answered your question. You're just a couple minutes late. You'll have to watch the replay on Facebook. So what I'm playing is a King 3B Plus. This is it. It's not that old. I just have really acidic body chemistry, so it looks older than it is. It's a 525 bore, so that's why it's a 3B plus. It's not quite as narrow, small, and focused as a 2B or the regular 3B. But I was playing an Edwards before. It was a 508 Edwards that was based on a 508 Yamaha that I was playing before that, which was like in high school, first year of college, most of college actually. I played on a Yamaha, and it was cool, but I was looking for a different sound concept. For me, what happened with the Edwards, because it was a copy of something that was really comfy to play, is that I prioritized like comfort over functionality, over sound concept, and it wasn't super ideal in terms of what was coming out the horn. So for me, I always try to prioritize having the sound first, and then the like, I don't know, the ease of playing is not a priority. So the sound always comes first for me. So, you know, that's why I switched to something that had the sound concept that I was looking for. I was looking for something a little bit more fatter, a little thicker, a little more malleable. The Edwards bell was satin finish, and I know they say the satin finish doesn't change anything, but for me, I really felt like it wasn't. It really wasn't resonating the way I wanted. I mean, I know that seems like a very random thing, but I think something about the satin finish, something about the way it was constructed to match something else, and when it was a previous sound concept. And I wanted something, because the King bells are such that you can really get them to zip. You can really kind of put some force behind them and really they have different kind of sound qualities that you can get. Even though it's, 525, I can still play lead. Sometimes not, but you can kind of get a range of sound concepts, and it's still not exactly perfect. I'm still hearing something slightly different than this, but this is the closest that I've been able to get so far. When I play something bigger, like a 547, it gets a little too tubby. So to me, it would probably be good to do something like a custom, like right in the middle or something. So yeah, SPHE, Zungu. Yeah, different trombones do give you different sound. That's definitely true. And you gotta match up what's in your head versus what's available to you. So that's why I switched from Edwards to King, and then here we are. I played the Edwards until I was at Juilliard, so the 2010, 11, even 12. So 13, I think I've switched. 13 or 14 even. And I went back and forth between this one, which has a yellow brass bell, and one that had a silver bell. And so I just kind of went back and forth between those two. All right, there's some great questions coming in today. So thanks for asking those. Here's one. These kind of came in first, and then I'll get to you, Paul. Some people trolling in the chat here. But that's all right. Just ignore them. Okay, what do you think is the best budget microphone for trombone? I don't know. I like the Coles 4038, and that's not a budget microphone, but that's the microphone that I love to use on trombone. In terms of a budget microphone, this is what I have. This is a Rode, but this is like a podcasting microphone for speaking. I've recorded a little bit of trombone on it. It seems to be okay. I've recorded some trombone on this Apogee mic. Can I get it on screen here? This is a microphone from Apogee. It's just called Mic, M-I-C. It's USB. I don't have anything fancy in terms of my home setup, but as long as it sounds like a trombone to me, then I'm kind of okay with it when it's a budget situation. But other than that, I don't really want to mess around with anything. It's either got to be easy and cheap and sound pretty good. You can use an SM58 or something, and the trombone can sound pretty good. There's a lot of stuff you can do in software, so don't go crazy. Either get something budget, like you're saying, or go all the way and get a really, really great sounding microphone, like a Coles 4038. I like the ribbon microphone sounds on the trombone. I think it's the best. Some people like the RCA better than the Coles, but I guess that's a debate we could get into another day. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so we're up to date here on Instagram questions. So you're very welcome, Dylan. There's a lot of options, though, in terms of the budget range. But just make sure that the microphone that you get can handle a trombone, because a lot of them, sometimes if you play directly into them, they sound kind of crappy. You know what? Actually, what I would recommend? I would recommend you get a Zoom recorder. Like I have this one. I have a bunch of them, but this is one, a Q2N Zoom. You can get this and use it as a USB interface into your computer. The microphones that are in the Zooms are really good. They sound good. Ugh, dropping stuff, breaking my Zoom. But they give a natural sound. And for like jazz and acoustic music, I want it to sound like the instrument, And they have adjustable gain control, so you can make sure that it's not clipping, meaning not too loud and busting up the microphones. Excuse me. Ant, miss you too. I know we're all kind of stuck in this quarantine situation, but I'm glad to at least talk to you guys on the live stream. So I'm glad you can be here today. Feel free to drop some questions in. I don't know why my question disappeared off Instagram. my poll, but it did. So sorry about that. If you asked a question and I don't get to it. All right, Paul Gavin. Hey, Nick, I'm still fascinated by the solo tours that you've done and grateful to be a small part. What would you say were the benefits and downfalls of doing those tours? Anything you changed? So Paul is a drummer down in Florida. He based out of Tampa, I believe, or one of the places right around Tampa. And yeah, he's referring to the last couple of years, including this year, but kind of this year's tour kind of got cut short because of all this Corona stuff. I often do tours by myself and pick up bands around the country. Why I do this is because I want to get the music out. I want to share the music because, you know, you put all this time, energy, and money into an album. You want to share the music with people. So I've been able to, luckily, find venues around that are willing to have me. And I view it as kind of an advertising expense that goes into the production of the album. So I view it that way so that I don't worry about the money, you know, like I'm viewing it as expense, and then whatever comes back in is an investment towards the next album. So the benefits of doing these things is that you get your music out there. You get to meet a lot of people. You get more people that are interested in your music, talking about your music, listen to it a couple of times, you know, so it kind of forces a few people to check it out because you ask them to play with you. You know, and I think it used to be that way in the jazz industry that, you know, people would go and play with people, go and play in like Chicago and then LA. And so anyway, I just figured that I don't have the budget to bring my whole band yet with me. So I don't want to let that preclude me from actually doing a tour. So that's why I've been doing it. I did it in 17, I did it 18, I did it 19. And in 2020, well, we got cut short this year, but it was going. And this year I was able to take Lucas Pino with me. But the main downfall is that it's not the real version of the music, quote unquote. All right, I got to pause. 2 people now have commented on these glasses, Adam and Nadia. They're new. They're not, they're blue light glasses. They're because I've been spending a lot of time on the computer. So I decided to get the blue light glasses so that my eyes didn't hurt so much. I'm getting old. But they're from Movement, MVMT, that company. They're not prescription, so I have to wear my contacts and then have the glasses also. But back to just finishing up my answer to Paul's question, the downfall is that the music isn't exactly how it is on the album. You can't play all the complicated stuff, like the more intricate stuff, just because you can't, you know, there's not enough rehearsal time. And so it's maybe not exactly the product that you want to put out into the world. And I understand why sometimes people protect their music in that way. And I think at some point I'll probably do the same. But at this point, I still think I'm on the up climb, you know, like of what's happening with my career and my music. So I feel like I'm still trying to get up to something higher and get more people aware of what I'm doing in terms of, you know, at least the jazz industry, jazz fans, et cetera, et cetera. So I guess I hope that answered your question, Paul. But if not, you know, let me know. Well, thanks for being here, everybody. I'm glad to see so many people on the stream, kind of in and out. It's great. Feel free to drop questions in as we go here, but I have some from this week to get to. Let's see. So Jonah Portnari, he says, also, how do you tailgate on trombone? So I'm guessing he asked another question, but he asked about transcriptions too. So, okay, I'll do both of these at once from Jonah. He says, what are good transcriptions to start with? And he also says how to tailgate on the trombone. So these things are going to go hand in hand, because if you want to learn how to tailgate, you got to listen to tailgate trombone style. So just talking this past week with one of my students, and we were talking about the history of jazz trombone and talking about what types of solos and what types of people you might want to check out to dig this type of playing. So I would suggest going all the way back to the beginning and with Kid Ory. He did it first, and so you might as well go to him. And you have to transcribe him doing the tailgate style. So, you know, listen to those early recordings, the Louis Armstrong groups, Hot Fives, Hot Sevens, not Hot Five because it's no trombone, Hot Seven, and transcribe what he's doing. You know, you have to find your role and stay out of the way. You know, that's your job as the tailgating trombonist. You know, you're not supposed to get in the way. You're supposed to support. So knowing your role. Hi, Amanda. knowing that you need to go and listen to the melody, make sure there's basically, the trumpet is playing the melody, the clarinet is playing kind of this obligato over the top, and then the trombone is playing the supporting harmony role. So your job is to fill in that middle between the bass and the melody. So transcribe, Kid Ory. Then I might jump forward and say Jack Teagarden, transcribe some Jack Teagarden, not the solo, but what they're doing when they're tailgating. And then Trummy Young was a little bit later, but he's also a great tailgate trombone player. So if you transcribe some Kid Ory, not the solos, the tailgating itself, transcribe Jack Teagarden playing with ensemble, and transcribe Trummy Young doing that, you can get a lot of information. There's other people like Miff Mull, J.C. Hickenbotham. There's a lot of people that did this style very, very well, but you don't need to transcribe all of them. You need to just dig into a few of them and see what's going on with them. So that's the answer there. And some good solos to start with transcribing. If you've never transcribed before, I recommend something that's going to be easily accessible to you, something you might have heard a bunch of times, something you might be able to sing, as in like you've heard it a million times, you can sing along with it. I usually send people to Miles Davis on So What? Because there's not a lot of changes. You don't got to worry about like a ton of 2/5 harmony or chromatic stuff. It's all within those harmonies, and it's not too long. It's 2 choruses, I believe. And it's just relaxed, medium tempo. So that's where I would start. I send people to Miles Davis, So What? And then I send people to, for trombone stuff, Curtis Fuller on Blue Train. And I always say to leave out the fast part, because he's playing a lot of really great language, blues language and simple language, but it's not that difficult to play. It's not that difficult to get into. So those are the first 2, Jonah. Miles Davis, So What? And then do Curtis on Blue Train, and then we can talk. All right? So send me a video of you doing that, and then I'll give you some more suggestions after you've put in the time. Great. All right, there's a question over here from Instagram from Ryan Brown 557. He says, what advice would you have for overcoming roadblocks? Well, I'm not exactly sure what kind of roadblocks he's talking about. So if you're watching right now, Ryan, maybe you could expand on what type of roadblocks you're talking about. If you mean like practicing roadblocks, it's usually to find something that is tackling the same concept, but with new music, because usually what's causing the roadblock in my experience has been that you're no longer inspired by whatever you're working on. So sometimes with students, if you work on the same thing for too long, they end up not being interested in it anymore. Even if they love the transcription or they love the tune that they're working on, sometimes you have to force it. You have to move on, but you have to find something that has the same concepts in it so that you can overcome that roadblock, if it's like a practicing roadblock, in terms of a tempo or in terms of a key or something like that. If it's like a tempo, I always say like push it further than it needs to go so that it's comfortable when you pull the tempo back down and you're practicing it at the normal tempo again, or the performance tempo. So you want to be pushing yourself beyond where you want to be comfortable. And so if that means playing tunes in 12 keys so you're more comfortable in the home key, if that means playing faster so you can play slower, all of that different kind of stuff. So that's how I'm interpreting your question, Ryan. If that wasn't really what you were talking about, then let me know. Drop in another comment, a follow-up to your question. But we're taking questions today. It's Friday, April 17th. And so thanks for joining. Thanks for hanging out. I hope you're all doing well, staying healthy and safe wherever you might be. I see people kind of from all over logging into the Facebook and Instagram streams. Okay, perfect. Ryan said that's what he was asking. So I'm glad to hear that. All right. I got another question in the queue here from this week. All right. There's a bunch of trolls and a bunch of blank people that reply, and so I'm going to ignore them. So Heinrich Practicin. That's funny. Good screen name, or not screen name, handle. You can tell I'm a child of the 2000s. The screen name, man. AOL Instant Messenger. You got to have your hip screen name. Okay, so Heinrich asks, how can you improve your high range while keeping good tone? So having a full tone in the high range is one of the most difficult things to do. But the first thing is you have to actually be able to play the notes. So I don't really discriminate against playing high notes with a thin sound at first, because you have to play them with a thin sound before you can play them with a full sound, at least in my experience. And so I would recommend playing them out in the longer positions, meaning instead of trying to play a high F in first, if you gliss from the F, 2 ledger lines above the staff and try to go up an octave and going against the grain. So it goes boo, and try to play it out in sixth position, because there's less resistance, or there's more resistance when you go out, so that once you get all the way out, you can go play that high F out there, and maybe it's a little tiny F and it's squeaky or whatever, but then over time it'll get stronger and stronger. You can keep going up by half steps. You could play like D to D, and then E flat to E flat, E to E, F to F, keep going maybe. And then that's relating to what I was telling Ryan a second ago, that if you want to push yourself past these roadblocks, if it's a range roadblock, you got to go higher than you want to go. I always said you got to go a minor third above where you want to be comfortable. I remember struggling to reach a high B flat when I was in high school, and my teacher always said, well, the B flat is irrelevant, because if you can't play a D flat above the B flat, then you're not actually going to be able to play the B flat when you want to play it. And I didn't know how true that was until later, but it was definitely 100% correct. So you got to push yourself beyond where you want to be able to get to in order to be able to be comfortable with the thing that you're trying to do. So those are the things. You got to play those notes with a little sound before you can play them with a big sound. You got to play them glissed out to, or ripping up to, before you can hit them right on with an articulation. And be patient with yourself. High range stuff is like notoriously difficult and notoriously hard, for lack of a better way to put it. So I'm not like a super high range player myself. Like I can play the notes, but I'm not a person that can like slam out some high Fs. That's just not my strength. So, but for me, I had to get up there, start playing songs in the upper register, get that register just to be a little more full slowly over time. So that's what you got to do. Who asked that question? Heinrich. So Heinrich, that's what you got to do. Great. All right. I think there was a couple more questions that got dropped in during this week, but they disappeared because I was too slow. I needed to save them sooner, and I didn't do it. So if you want to drop in a question now, please go ahead. Tony is saying take 5. I don't know why, but he also said Steve Turre. Yes, Steve Turre is a great mentor of mine. He's a great trombonist, obviously, and great musician, composer, all of that stuff. So I've got a couple more questions. This is kind of next question is kind of long, which is why I saved it for last. I'll start answering it, but feel free to drop in some other questions while I'm answering this one, because it might take a few minutes to actually get through this question. From Gil Evans Project. So Ryan Truesdell, great composer, producer. He was on the show a couple weeks ago. He was talking about the role of a jazz producer. You can go find that on YouTube. There's plenty of conversation from that you can listen to. I don't need to go into it right now. But he asked this. He said, what are the challenges and important aspects of playing in a section, big band and mixed instrumentation? And then a little personal note after that. But, as a trombonist in particular, it's one of the most essential jobs that you have is being able to play in an ensemble, play with other people. It's not, a whole lot of gigs to be had as just the leader, all by yourself. You've got to be able to function within an ensemble, whether it's a big band or otherwise. So some thoughts, some techniques, some tips and tricks, I suppose, for developing that is that you have to be able to sight read really well so that you're not thinking about the sight reading that you're doing, number one. If you're thinking about the notes that you're about to play and you're obsessed with like, oh my God, I gotta make sure that I play this right, there's no way you're going to be able to blend and balance and match style and match sound with the people around you. So particularly, I'm going to talk about playing, like second or third trombone, and like it could be second or third tenor or second and third trumpet. Your job is to, number one, support the lead player, and then also listen to the rest of the section for intonation and style and sound. So you want to be part of the sound. You want to be part of the overall blend. You need to play up to the lead, but not overpower the lead. There's a lot of things here, I know. But if you're thinking about the notes and rhythms that you're playing, there's no way that you can actually like blend and balance in real time. So you need to be comfortable enough with the music that you can get out of there. So then this is related to something we talked about the last week. People said, what do you think about when you improvise? And I said, well, when I'm improvising, I'm listening to everybody else. I'm saying, what does the music need right now? And so I say the same thing when I'm playing in a group, when I'm playing in a section. Like, what does the section need right now? What does the music need? Do I need to play louder? Is my note out of tune? Am I playing too loud in the balance? Is this major seventh too loud? Does it need to be chill? Hide back in the voicing. So that's what I asked myself. What does the music need right now? What is the amount of playing I should be doing? What does the lead player need? Is he playing way up in the upper register? Do I need to really kind of play full to support him so he can sit right on top of the section? Now, the other thing that comes into play is, hang on one second, I got to start this. The other thing that comes into play is the balance of the different instruments when you get into a mixed instrumentation. So a lot of what I've done in my career is play in a lot of groups that are kind of medium sized. Like I play in Lucas Pino's Nonet, and I play in Anat Cohen's Tentet. And so those are groups where it's not like a trombone section, but it's like a horn section, maybe. And like with the Knots group in particular, we've got trombone, flugelhorn or trumpet, and bari sax, vibes, cello. What other horns? I guess the guitar is a horn sometime. And then we have clarinet, which is a knot, playing the lead a lot of the time. So being aware of like, what is the size of the sound I'm creating? So that's kind of a weird thing to say, I know, but like, how resonant is my sound right now? Is it fitting into the context of what it needs to be? You have to adjust your sound concept. And I talk about sound concept in terms of improvising and developing your own sound a lot. So you have to have a malleable sound concept that can fit into these situations. So knowing how you're balancing with a cello is a lot different than another trombone section. So you have to listen more to everybody else than listen to yourself. So again, that becomes like another whole thing of like, you have to be comfortable with what you're doing. You can't be guessing. You can't be thinking about what the tune is. You can't be thinking about, what am I supposed to be playing right now? You have to be singularly focused on what's happening around you, and try to listen to the whole section from above or around the front. What does it sound like of all of us together? What's the sum of all of our sounds? When you play with really good balance, you can't hear yourself. You disappear into the overall sound, whether that's cello and trumpet and bari, or if it's, five horns, alto, tenor, bari, trumpet, trombone. When you're really playing in tune and you're really playing with each other and inside of each other's sound concepts, you just kind of disappear. You just kind of slip into the sound, and you're not necessarily, it's not one voice. It's like a sum of all voices together, So those are some tips overall, but it really requires you to have your sight reading at a high level, and so that you're playing at a high level so that you're not thinking about what's going on. You're thinking about how to make the music the best, which is how to blend the best, how to balance the best, and not thinking about any of these details. So you got to focus on the big picture. That's how you do it. Well, hopefully that answered Ryan's question, but that's just the beginning, You got to play in different ensembles, play in a pit orchestra. You got to play in a brass ensembles. You have to play in trombone choir. You have to play in small group with 2 horns and 3 horns and 2 and 1 horn. And my first band was guitar and trombone. And how does those two sounds playing the melody fit together? And so there's a lot that goes into it, but just thinking about the sound concept of the ensemble is just as important as your own sound concept is you. So I know this is getting kind of esoteric, but let's move on. So those are a few tips and tricks from from Ryan Truesdell. So if there's any other questions, feel free to drop them in. Tony, thanks for being here. He wanted me to play the melody to Take 5. I saw your message there while I was talking about that other question. But I'm not going to do that right now. I'm not going to play Take 5. Just because I don't want to screw it up, mostly. But thanks for being here. Hello, John. Hello, Jordan. Thanks for being here, Jordan. I saw some other people. I saw somebody whose question I answered log on while I was answering it. Yeah, Jonah Portinari. We answered your question earlier on, so you'll have to go back and watch the replay. But we did answer your 2 questions, both questions. Jordan Pavlica, so he asked thoughts on buzzing. I don't really do that much buzzing. There is a time and a place for it. I think it's as part of a well-balanced routine. It can be cool, but I don't believe that you actually buzz when you play your instrument. When you play the trombone, I don't really think you actually buzz. You're vibrating the air, but there's not, like when you go, it's not the same really to me. And when you buzz on a mouthpiece, I mean, it doesn't feel the same at all as when you're playing into the instrument. So I don't really make a huge priority out of it, but sometimes I will do some very quiet buzzing with a piano to just kind of even things out. But if I do too much buzzing, like sometimes it makes my sound more spread, more thin, more airy than actually focusing it. So I'd like to do whisper tones to like focus the sound in. I know some people really swear by buzzing, but I also think that it's really important for you to find what works for you and not worry about, this person said this and this person said that. It's like, well, there's a lot of ways to play the trombone well, and not everybody has to have the same routine. But I don't buzz. I don't make a priority to buzz. It seems like maybe trumpet players like to do it more, but I just don't think it's that important to do as a trombonist. Sometimes in specific situations, there can be a reason to dig into buzzing if you're really like having trouble getting the sound going or getting the air going, because it takes a lot more air to do the buzz than to make a sound on the trombone, just because of the resistance that's inevitable when you play the trombone. And I always think that when you're buzzing, people generally buzz too loud, like they really like buzz really loud, when really like you need to play with the same sort of effort that you do when you have it plugged into the trombone. So for me, I usually tell people to cover a little bit of it and then play to get a little bit of resistance, and play soft, really soft. Right, and it's really about moving the air and getting the air. Because, like I said, a lot more air to get the mouthpiece to buzz than it is to play the instrument. So, to me, they're separate things. And I got into free buzzing for a while, and then I kind of moved away from it. But there's a whole video on YouTube about buzzing techniques and stuff that I put up, I don't know, last year around this time, I think, actually. I was in D.C. for the American Trombone Workshop, and I know I made a video at the hotel about that one. So, Jazzboy 2020, how are you doing? Appreciate you being here. I'm going to go back to the beginning. Some people wrote some profane comments, and I just realized you could actually delete them and or report them. Yeah, here they are. So I'm going to do that. Oop. I don't know what's happening with this. It paused me. Sorry about that. So we're back. Any other questions? Feel free to drop them in. That was my thoughts about buzzing, Jordan. So yeah, cool. Glad you saw it. Check that out. But overall, not a huge priority for me to do the buzzing. Hope you guys are all doing super well. Hope you're all staying safe, staying healthy. It's been quite a while of this quarantine so far, so it's starting to really get a little crazy. So I'm upping my kind of content game, and if you're interested in seeing more stuff, I've been doing live streams on Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays. On Mondays, it's with the Outside In Music artists. We've been talking about their music. The Outside In channels, if you don't know, Outside In Music is my label and production company and media company, and do a whole bunch of different things. But we've been streaming the artists, so they happy hour chats, so they can kind of share what they've been up to. So that's on Monday nights. On Thursday, yesterday, we did a practice session, just playing some tunes with some play-alongs, and I kind of trade back and forth with people. So if you want to mark that on your calendar, next Thursday around noon, we're doing the same thing. I will post a set list beforehand, so follow either in the stories here on Instagram or on Facebook. I'm still working on being able to get all of the audio into Instagram. So the live stream for Thursdays will only be on Facebook, I think, just because of technical difficulties of being. I'm working on it, but I think it'll be happening soon, but not this week. And then Fridays we do our weekly Q&A, and that's where we are here. So and I've been releasing as much as I can on YouTube in terms of trombone stuff. Man, it's really good. There's a lot of really great stuff happening. A lot of people giving us a hard time in the chat, which is great. I love getting trolled. It's all good. Oh, look at this. Anyway, all good. All is well. And thanks for being here. Any other questions? Feel free to drop them in, or we'll kind of wrap up for this week. It's been a nice little Q&A. And if you didn't know, I always try to get the questions on Thursday started so that we have some for Friday. So, and if you send me on Messenger, like the very first question we did today, I answered from there. So that's how I like to do it. Make sure if the earlier you get your question in, I'll make sure that it gets answered. But I don't see any more coming in for today. So I'm going to sign off. But this will be posted on YouTube probably next week. So hope you enjoyed the Q&A. Thanks for being here. Hope you're doing well. And we'll see you in a week.